Yo, what's going on, guys? Mush back at it with a $1,000 gaming PC build. Someone requested me over on Twitter to do this, and it's been about like 3 months since I've done my last $1,000 build, so I thought this would be a good time to update that video. So without further ado, let's get right into this with the CPU. For the CPU of this build, I did go with the new KABYLAKE series CPU, the Intel Core i5-7600K 3.8 GHz quad-core processor. This is kind of expensive. It's going for around $240. If you guys want, you can pick up something like the 600K instead, or if you're not looking to do any overclocking, you can pick up one of the non-K variants instead and save a little bit of money that way. The $1,000 budget does lend yourself to going with a K series CPU, and with that you will need a CPU cooler, something like the Cooler Master Hyper 212 or the CryoRig H7, a cheap but suitable CPU cooler. If you want to go a little bit higher end, you can pick up like water cooling or something, but for the majority of you guys, I think the Hyper 212 will be suitable. Moving on to the motherboard, I went with the MSI Z270-A Pro LJ1151 motherboard. This is a relatively cheap Z270 board. It's going for around $115, which comparatively speaking to a lot of the other boards, it's a pretty good price. As far as features go, you've got 4 RAM slots up to DDR4 3600 MHz and up to 64 GB of max memory support. It's got RAID support, 6 SATA 6 gigabit per second ports, and onboard USB 3 headers. The nice thing about these boards is that you're not going to need a BIOS update, and they're going to work right out of the box with the KABYLAKE CPUs. Some of the other ones, it is hit or miss, so it's just nice getting a Z270 board, and considering this one is really nice as far as features and aesthetics go, and it's only $115, I think it's a solid fit in this build. For RAM, I went with Kingston Fury 8GB, two 4GB sticks running at DDR4 2400 MHz. Now, I've been saying in other videos, but I really noticed it while making this build, RAM prices seem to be a little bit higher, especially for DDR4 RAM. Right now, 8GB of RAM is going for around $65 to $80, which is kind of expensive considering holiday last year. I remember seeing 8GB kits of RAM for like $55, so that is a little unfortunate. RAM prices have been fluctuating a lot. If you keep your eyes open, you could probably find a better deal, but still 8GB of RAM for $67 isn't a terrible deal, and you're gonna need it for any gaming PC build in 2017. I know 16GB of RAM is definitely an option. That's around $95 to $110. If you want to go for that, go ahead. Right now, 8GB of RAM is still suitable for gaming. However, in the next year or two, I really see 16GB of RAM becoming more and more of a standard, so it is an upgrade you're definitely going to have to be open to. Moving on to storage, first for the mechanical hard drive, you're going to go with the Western Digital Caviar Blue 1TB. It's going to be your mass storage device, and this is around $49. Pretty standard price for the Caviar Blue 1TB. And obviously at a $1,000 budget, you're also going to want to get an SSD. The ADATA Premier 240GB SSD is at $73. Some of the other options from Samsung and whatnot are a little bit more expensive, around $95 for the same amount of storage. This is another one where SSD prices are fluctuating all the time. If you find a good deal, you can get a 240GB SSD for like $60. Right now, this was the best deal that I was able to find, but like I said, keep your eyes open, and if you look out, you can definitely find a better deal on an SSD. I think a setup like this works very well. I have a 240GB SSD as well as a Caviar Blue 1TB. I have a 3TB hard drive as well because I record a lot of videos and whatnot, but I think for a normal person, 240GB SSD and a 1TB hard drive is a great setup. You can go with a 120GB SSD, however, I've noticed that that gets very limiting, and having 240GB is just going to give you a little bit of extra headroom, which is very nice, but still, the majority of your applications are obviously going to go on the mass storage 1TB drive. Moving on to the GPU, I went with the EVGA GeForce GTX 1070 8GB video card. This is $380, and a 1070 is a very powerful video card if somehow you guys don't know. If you're just looking to game at 1080p, honestly, a 1070 might be a little overkill. You could honestly get away with something like a 1060. However, with the $1,000 to work with, a 1070 was pretty easy to fit into the budget. I should mention that this build comes slightly above $1,000. It's like $1,060, but after mail-in rebates and whatnot, and if you find a couple good deals, you could probably get it well under $1,000 in actuality. Back to the video card though, the 1070 is a fantastic GPU. It's the GPU that I have. I game the majority of times at 1440p, and the GPU really holds up. There are a few games here and there that if you want to max out at 1440p, you're not going to be getting 60 frames per second, but 1440p gaming looks so good, and I think you get the most out of the 1070 when you game at that resolution. But if you're looking to game at 1080p, well then obviously the 1070 is going to murk just about any game you throw at it. It's a great GPU for the money, and right now if you pick it up, you do get a free copy of either For Honor or Tom Clancy's Ghost Recon Wildlands, so definitely a great pickup right now. Next up, the power supply, the Seasonic S12 2012 620 watt 80 plus bronze certified PSU for $50 is a perfect option. It's cheap. 620 watts is more than enough to power this build at 1070 while it is a higher end GPU. The higher end GPUs these days are also very power efficient, so getting something like a 750 or 800 watt power supply is just a waste of money in my opinion, especially because, like I've said in the past, I am not a fan of SLI or Crossfire configurations, and for a single GPU solution, 620 watts more than enough, and it's only $50, which is great. Finally, for the case, the Corsair $200 ATX mid-tower case is a really nice case for only 60 bucks. Aesthetically, it's kind of basic. It's got a plain black look, but considering it's just a case, and I really didn't go too hard with the color scheme or anything like that in this build, something like that is gonna work just fine. If you want to get something with a side window, you can check out the NZXT S340. That's one of the highest reviewed cases on the market, one of the most popular as well. Everybody has good things to say about that case, so that is also an option. Also, the Cooler Master Half 912 is the case that I have, and I really like it. I would put the $200 and the S340 above that case, so whichever route you go, you can't really go wrong. A lot of good and cheap options as far as cases go. So that's gonna wrap up this video, guys. Like I said, the build does come to around $1,060, but if you look for mail-in rebates, you look for a sale or two, you could probably get it for like 950 bucks. So yeah, as always, guys, thanks for watching. If you have a request for a future video, you can leave that in the comment section down below. Like this video if you enjoyed, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Peace out.